fascination of a star for the public, the desire to see in person the personality whose likeness you have watched on the screen, and the competitive interest which that evokes between the merits of one star and another. It's irresistible, isn't it? No wonder the word goes round when a handsome young man looking a bit like Bill Ith is seen on the sea front or coming ashore in a motorboat. Yes, soon the suspicion becomes certainty. It is Bill Ith, and then the crowds gather. When Pat Rock visited Edinburgh recently to tour the Scottish Daily Mail exhibition, there was almost a riot in that sedate city. When Margaret Lockwood looked in at Glasgow on a similar errand, the local students' rag became submerged in the melee. And when you get a lot of stars together, with the King and Queen and Princesses setting the seal of royalty on the occasion, however, we'll come back to the Royal Command film performance later. Contrast the scenes of public enthusiasm with the quiet decorum of a film reception when stars and producers and newspaper people are brought together to meet one another or to see a new picture.
Bennett, Mr. Miller. Sorry. Alexander Corder.
Michael Redgrave is announced. Mr. Mark Ostra and daughter. Mr. Max Milder. Maria Montes and her husband. Valerie Hobson. The scene is the reception to the visiting film stars who came over from Hollywood to appear in the Royal Command film performance. After being received by Mr. and Mrs. Reginald Bromhead, the guests floated about and talked to one another with amiable vivacity. Here's a close-up of Dorothy Malone. Now a pan which includes Reginald Gardner, Martha Scott, Mr. and Mrs. Pat O'Brien, and Kim Hunter. Michael Powell in conversation with the editor of the Daily Express and the wife of his partner, Emmerich Pressburger, probably about their film, which is to be shown next day at the Royal Command performance. Nobody seemed to realize the enormous stir which this event was going to cause in London, and I think now that the police admit that their measures to cope with it were inadequate. Just look at this mob. Look at the people swarming over the cars as they crawled up inches at a time, swarming over them to get a peep into the foyer of the Empire Theatre. In that tremendous crush, ticket holders on foot were unable to make their way through. Some women had their clothes almost torn off their backs, and all because of the amazing public interest in their film stars. The police had an anxious time. The safety of the royal patrons of the performance had to be ensured, and Leicester Square was packed with seething humanity almost to congestion point. The pressure on the narrow lane kept open between the curb and foyer had to be countered by equal forcefulness. When the Queen and Princesses arrived, it was literally a case of squeezing through a jostling multitude. It won't happen twice. Next time, the authorities will be prepared for the enthusiasm. Inside the foyer, the King and Queen were met by a reception committee which included Mr. and Mrs. Reginald Bromhead, Mr. Sam Ekman, Mr. Arthur Rank, and Mrs. Rank. Daughters of stars presented bouquets. And then the royal party went upstairs to take their seats. There's no harm, I think, in reminding you of the name of the film chosen for the Royal Command, since it's not eligible for this year's National Film Award. After the show, Hollywood and English stars made a personal appearance on the stage before being presented to the King and Queen. Among those noted by the camera were Kim Hunter, star of the picture, in the same shot as Reginald Gardner, Vivian Leigh and Laurence Olivier, Bessie Love, Stuart Granger, Maria Montes, and Sid Field. Then their Majesties entered the room and the presentations were made. Joan Bennett, Walter Wanger, Diana Wynyard and Anthony Kimmins, Pat O'Brien, Sally Gray, Rosamund Johns, Valerie Hobson, Vivian Lee, Bessie Love being presented, John Mills and beyond him, Deborah Carr, Ralph Richardson, Will Hay, Bud Flanagan, Jean Kent, the Prime Minister and his daughter were present, and Mr. Attlee paused to have a word with Mr. Rank. And there's William Ith again with Dorothy Malone, Margaret Lockwood, and the President of the KRS, Major Reginald Baker, Michael Redgrave, his daughter, and John Mills, Ray Milland and his wife, also with his wife, Mr. Fred Pryor, President of the CEA, Patricia Rock, Reginald Gardner, and Joan Bennett, Michael Powell, one of the two producers of the film, on the stairway. Such was the Royal Command film performance of October 1946, one of the great film occasions of the year. Another was the first British Film Festival. In a way, it seems superfluous to show you scenes similar to those in which you're taking part at this very moment. However, you may be interested in a few backstage shots, artists studying their lines, others making the most of their opportunities. It's Beryl, George. Come on, out. The Silver Star had just been designed by Miss Brothers, who was congratulated by Tommy Trinder.
I'd like to congratulate you for your design of the trophy. Not that I'd ever win anything for film acting. I once got a second prize in a horse show, but then that's a different routine, and I'm sure I can sell that commercially. But anyway, once again, Miss Brothers, congratulations, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Leslie Mitchell was the compere on that occasion. Launched at the British Film Festival, the poll for the National Film Award brought in over 500,000 votes. At another film gathering, the awards in the shape of Silver Star trophies were presented. Lord and Lady Rothermere received the guests, who included Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Rank, Stanley Holloway and his wife, Sally Gray and Glynis Johns, Michael Redgrave, the editor of the Daily Mail with Alice Marble, Phyllis Calvert, close runner-up to Margaret Lockwood, Margaret Lockwood herself with Leslie Mitchell. Lord Rothermere spoke on the purpose of the awards.
Ladies and gentlemen, the National Film Award was founded with the object of focusing the attention of the public, both here and overseas, on the great advance in the technique of filmmaking and acting which has come to the film industry in recent years.
Then Lady Rothermere presented the trophy for the best male performance in British films of the war years to James Mason.
Time nor the place to start saying all the wrong things. I'll content myself with just thanking all those readers of the Daily Mail who were responsible for this particular outcome. You can see that this isn't a thing to carry off lightly.
Margaret Lockwood received the trophy for the best actress.
Ladies and gentlemen, my feelings tonight are a little difficult to put into words. I would, though, like to say that tonight is the proudest moment of my film career.
The award for the best British film went to the producer and director of The Way to the Stars, Anatole de Grunewald and Anthony Asquith. Well, there are the winners of the National Film Awards in 1946. Who will it be this year?